Early days of the PLP, faced with the unremitting hostility of the media to them and the inability to get their message out, they surmounted that problem by holding public meetings from place to place, and they got the message by word of mouth. We must learn from the past. That is the valuable part of being part of an organization that has 55 years of history behind it and 55 years or more to come in front of it. It is a truism, and I say it tonight. Now, more than ever, we need the PLP. There is an inexorable transition taking place in the PLP. It is coming whether we like it or we don't. All of us, from the top to the bottom, must know that change is coming and that each of us has to examine what our roles will be in that transition and be prepared to do what is necessary to effect that transition. Tonight, mine is to promote the ideas for change. And you know, since he got elected to office, a lot of people have been talking about Barack Obama and his campaign in the United States. All I say is, you can't simply talk the language of change. You must change. Everyone wants to talk about change, but when it comes time to change, nobody wants to change. So I'm saying again, don't just talk the language of change, but change. Now, I want to throw out a challenge to you. How do we get the branches and the council of our party to more accurately reflect the demographics of age and social groups in our country, where 70% of the people of the country are under 35 years of age? How do we promote our ideas and help our people through this difficult economic time? I have some answers. For starters, there ought to be a recruitment program of young people into the branches. Each PLP parent who is out here tonight ought to seek to encourage their children to join and bring them out to the meetings. But when they come, they have to have something to greet them. The PLP must retool and retrain, just as the country must do so. One answer is the increased use of technology. This leads to my second point. We from the PLP in Fox Hill, and I as the representative, we are investing in infrastructure on this park so that within the next 6 months, anyone will be able to have access to the internet free of charge on the Fox Hill Parade through their laptops and wireless devices. Secondly, one of the schools in the area has now agreed to hold classes for the Senior Citizens Association of Fox Hill to learn how to use computers and access the internet. Thirdly, we plan to find the resources to upgrade the internet access to the Sandlands Primary School so that all of the children will have access to the internet and learn the skills for the new economy. How does this apply to the PLP generally? We need to have added sources of information. The PLP has a website, and I would bet tonight that many have not seen or read it. How many of you have read or seen myplp.com? Andrew Burrows, who is our webmaster, works very hard to maintain myplp.com. And on it, you can find information about the PLP. The question I ask myself is, why would PLPs depend on the Punch, the Tribune, and the Guardian for news about the PLP when they have their own website? And I'm not arguing for you to stop reading those other sources. But what I'm saying is, try to access the PLP's website to find out information about the PLP. And I'm also recommending BahamasUncensored.com as another source of information about the PLP. PLPs undermine themselves by depending and often believing the propaganda of the traditional media sources without checking on the PLP's website and getting the PLP's side of the story. So technology is key for the PLP and for our country. This is not the only answer, but I think it is part of the solution to those issues. And so as I close, a word to Hubert Ingram before I leave. You know, it is not good to live in cloud cuckoo land. In the press yesterday, he was quoted as saying the country would have been worse off under Perry Christie if Perry Christie were Prime Minister today. Well, one thing we know is we'll never know. We'll never know. The other thing is, mouth can open to say anything. What we know is, and we know this for sure, the country is worse off under Hubert Ingram as Prime Minister than Prime Minister Perry Christie 18 months ago. That's what we know. Can't dispute that fact. We can't know what it would have been like if Perry Christie were Prime Minister today. But we do know that with Hubert Ingram as Prime Minister today, we know we're worse off than we were 18 months ago when Perry Christie was the Prime Minister. That's what we know. Everywhere in this region where governments have changed within the last 2 years, the electorates have regretted that they chose to move the government they had. And I think in Jamaica they're saying that if election were held today, Portia would be the Prime Minister. So we think if election were held today, Perry Christie and the PLP would be back in power. Unfortunately, until that day, we in the Bahamas will spend our days singing, "We Got Swing." Until that day, when the PLP is returned to power, we'll be spending our days singing, "Look what you could get when you're tired of what you got." Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for listening to me tonight.